Hey, Kitsu here, and this is the first tutorial in the series that I'm planning to record about Sizzy. In the first tutorial, we're going to learn about the Sizzy workspace and about the basic view modes, align modes, and the rest of the stuff. It's gonna probably be a long video because there's a lot of things to cover. So I'm gonna try to talk slowly and explain slowly, and hopefully this video will be useful too. Alright, so this is the default thing that you would see when you enter Sizzy. You would see a bunch of devices laid out. So this is basically the biggest reason that people get Sizzy, because they think it's only a tool for testing responsive design, and they can type in a website here in the address bar, and then they can see the website on multiple devices at once. However, this is only one of the features that Sizzy offers. So I'm going to show you, while we're in this mode, I'm going to show you a couple of other modes and a couple of other layouts and a couple of other ways you can use Sizzy. So what you see here is the main workspace. So we call this the main workspace, and in the main workspace we can actually use a couple of different modes, not only responsive modes. So if I go in the toolbar here, you will see that we are in responsive mode right now, but I can easily go to full mode. So if I want, I can use Sizzy as a normal browser, and by normal I mean I can use the full viewport. It's still a browser that's focused for developers because it still has all of these features that were made for developers. So, but if I want to use this layout, I don't have to work on full mode. I don't have to work in responsive mode all the time. I can use full mode just like a regular browser, and from time to time when I need to work on multiple devices, I can just hop back into responsive mode. That's something that a lot of people don't know, and they think here you can only test in multiple devices at once. So we have full mode, we have responsive mode, and while we're in responsive mode, you can see that this button is enabled, and this allows me to switch the layout of the devices, so the alignment of the devices. So I can switch between grid, center, horizontal, vertical, and float, which is pretty cool, because in float I can just drag the devices whenever I want. So for example, I can go in the corner of the device and I can drag it to resize the device, and I can drag to resize this device, and depending on the screen space that I have, I can just align the devices however I want. And then when I jump into full mode, I will just have a perfect layout of my devices that you cannot get if your devices are laid out in a grid, and then you can maybe easily fit more devices on screen. And if you want, there's this like little drawer here which allows you to align them to a grid or align them in center, but they're still floating, so you can just quickly realign them, and you can then you can keep moving them around. And if one device is on top of another device and you want to select devices and align them more easily, you can just toggle selection mode, which now it will allow you to actually just highlight and select the device. So when this is highlighted, I can just click here to move the device to the top or move it to the bottom, so you can play with the alignment of the devices. And here, because this is clickable, I don't have to click on move to top here. I can click on move to top here in order to bring this device to the front, and I can turn off selection mode. So those are the align modes. So we can go vertical, horizontal, center, grid, and float. In all of these modes, we have a zoom level. So in the bottom right corner, we have different zoom levels that we can zoom all the devices to, and we can use the slider or we can use the button to zoom in the devices. The zoom mode acts differently in horizontal mode, in vertical mode, and in float mode. So in horizontal mode, well, I cannot show you actually any difference here, but yeah, you can see that if I zoom out the vertical mode, the devices will be laid out like this. We can also reset the zoom by clicking reset zoom, and I'm gonna go back to grid mode. What other thing do we have while we're in responsive mode? You can see when I'm in full mode, some of the things are disabled, so I cannot switch the alignment, and I cannot do a bunch of I don't have a bottom bar here, so there's no bottom bar in the app. But when I switch to responsive mode, you can see that I can switch the alignment, and I can also use this bottom bar in order to rotate all the devices, to landscape, to portrait, to screenshot all of them at once. So this is now making a screenshot of all the devices, and if I click open folder, it's going to show me the screenshots in a zip file. So that's the difference in the workspace when we're switching between full mode and responsive mode. We also have a couple of other modes which I have disabled on my device. So I can show you, you can just right click any icon if you want to show it, or you can just click customize toolbar in order to jump to the toolbar customization settings, or you can just go into settings, toolbar, and here you have a bunch of tabs for completely customizing everything in the toolbar. So here I have showing the responsive mode button, and I have showing the full mode button, but I have disabled the resizable mode button. So I'm going to enable that one. And also for the align modes, if you want, you can switch whether you want all the individual buttons to be displayed. So instead of having a pop-up here, you will see that now I will have individual buttons for all of these instead of having a pop-up. But because those take a lot of space, I'm going to go back to toolbar, align modes, and I'm going to switch this back to a pop-up. Of course, in the pop-up you can choose whether you wanted to click on hover and which modes do you want. For example, I don't use horizontal and vertical much. I can just and center, so I can just remove them, and when I click I'll just have two modes here. So the third mode that I added that was disabled is called resizable mode. So resizable mode just gives you something similar to what Google Chrome offers, so you can just take this device and play around with it and resize it. I don't know why people wanted it. The entire point of Sizzy is not to resize your browser, it's basically to use the devices that are offered here. So those are the view modes, those are the align modes. We have one more special mode that we have here, which we stopped calling it a mode because it's just a totally separate feature. We call it Photo Studio, and if I click into Photo Studio, I'm gonna jump into this free floating mode. I mean, the devices still work, you can scroll them, click them, and so on and so forth. But in Photo Studio, you can see that the entire UI has changed, and I have a bunch of options here for recording a GIF out of all of these devices. So I can click record a GIF. We'll start like 3, 2, 1, and now we're recording a GIF of the devices. I'm gonna click cancel because I don't want to save that. We can also record a video of all the devices. We can control the countdown, whether we want to actually show a countdown, whether we want to crop the empty space, and so on and so forth. But before we added videos and GIFs and so on, we had screenshots. So I can click take photo in this mode. I can align the devices however I want. I can zoom them in a little bit. Maybe I can center them or align them into grid. Then I can overlay one device on top of another device. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here basically, but if you're more artistic, you will actually figure out a nice way to screenshot these devices. And once you have the perfect layout, what you can do is you can click screenshot, of course. But what we offer in Photo Studio that's not available in the other parts of the app is you can choose your background. So I can go and choose any color that I want here. I can go into gradients and I can just choose any gradient, and then on top of the gradient I can pick the color, or I can overlay on top of the gradient like a black or a white color, depend on the gradient that I've chosen. And I can also shift the color. So if I like how the gradient looks like but I don't like the color, I can just shift the color to play with another colors until I find the perfect one. I can also choose an image. So let's say I'm going to pick this image. I can blur the image if I don't want it to be too sharp. I can overlay a color on top of it, a black color, and then I can shift the color. So this is perfect if you want to take like nice screenshots and to show off your work basically. And you can see there are a bunch of cluttering things that we don't want in here. So we can just click device config and we can disable the device header. We can, if you want, we can disable the frames, or we can disable the shadows, and we can play around with this. And then once we're ready, we can just click take photo, and we're going to take a screenshot of the entire Photo Studio. We have a bunch of controls here for controlling the zoom and stuff. And basically that's the Photo Studio. It's mostly for playing with these devices like you can do in photo mode, align them however you want. If you don't have the header, you can still right click them to do something like a rotation and so on and so forth. You still have selection mode in here, so if you cannot bring some device to the front, so on and so forth, you have all the icons that you need here for the device. You can rotate it, you can bring it to front if you want to, and then you can turn off selection mode. And that's it. We covered all of the options that we have here. Of course, we have more settings for the Photo Studio and the recordings, but I think I'm going to keep the settings for another video. So I showed you, let me rotate all the devices to portrait. I showed you all the modes that we have that are visible here. We can configure the device by clicking on device config also here. That's not only for Photo Studio. So let's go through that first, and then I'm going to show you one more mode that we have. So I'm going to enable the header because I want to see the name and everything else in the device. And then I can disable the shadow. I can choose the frame, whether I want a frame at all, whether I want to have browser and OS, or I just want the device. So you can just basically have this super minimalistic view. The difference is something that other browsers fail at is iPhone 11 doesn't give you this much screen space. It's basically the screen is that big, but in the screen you actually have a lot of UI elements from the browser and the OS. So If you want to have that exact space, but you don't want to look at the browser and OS in the frame, you can just click correct screen dimensions, which is gonna take those in mind, but it's not gonna give you, it's not gonna show them to you, but it's gonna take them in mind when showing you the amount of screen space without you looking at the browser and OS. I prefer to have the realistic devices with browser and OS and with a frame around them. And for the frame, we can choose whether we want a minimalistic frame, gray, black, white, color, and then we can just shift the color of whatever color we want. So I'm going to shift back to the default frames. And for devices like Galaxy S10 and other devices that have like glare and edges, basically, you can enable or disable those edges. You can see the thingy on the corner will disappear. For the header icons, which are these icons, we can choose in the device config whether we want to have like minimal, which is like no icons, which means all the actions will be in the menu here, or we can choose between balanced, which is going to show only the 3 icons that are needed, and then we can show full, which is going to show as many icons as possible. So you can choose between these 3, and you can also toggle the dimensions if you want to see the dimensions of the zoom and the zoom of the device. We can choose the space between devices. So if you want to have better overview, we can just reduce the space or increase the space. And I'm gonna keep the header icons to balance, and now I'm gonna jump into the individual devices. Before I show you all the options in the menu, we're just gonna look at what we have here. So for each device, we show the device name, the dimensions, and we have individual zoom level. So you can see that some devices are at 100% zoom level, this one and this one, but these two are at 75 because they're big devices. So I can still have individual zoom for the entire viewport. So this is like the global zoom, but you can see this stays at 75. So we can have like a global zoom, and then we can individually zoom some of the devices. So I can grab this device, for example, and I can reduce the individual zoom, and then still I can continue playing with the global zoom if I want to zoom out all the devices. So every device has individual zoom. We can control it by dragging on the corner here, or if you want to be precise, we can just click on the icon, and then we can just click around on minus and plus in order to control the individual zoom level for this device. Here we have an icon for rotating the device. We have an icon for refreshing the device. We have a screenshot icon, which is configurable. We're going to talk about that next time. So I can click screenshot, and this is going to take a screenshot of this device, which we can copy to clipboard. We can preview, or we can open the folder to see the screenshot, and then we can dive into the menu. So if I click in the menu here, in the device menu, we have the same items that we have here can be accessed by right clicking a device. So you can just right click anywhere, and you're going to see all of those items if you don't want to use the device header. But here they're more nicely aligned and grouped with icons and stuff. So what do we have here? The first item that I want to focus on is focus, which is another mode. But in order to jump into focus mode, you have to pick which device do you want. So I can say that for a while, I want to focus on Galaxy S10. And here I'm going to see my device, the Galaxy S10, and I'm going to be focused only on that device. And when I'm done with this, I can either hop back to responsive mode, full mode by clicking here, or I can click here and I can click exit focus, which is going to focus out of that device. This way I can easily just focus on any device. We can also do that. We can pin a bunch of these devices for easy access. Let me see if I have some devices pinned. Oh, I have a bunch of devices pinned. So let me just remove, I'm going to talk about this next time. And I'm going to remove these pinned devices. So we start with an empty tabs row. And now if I want to have easy access to some of devices, instead of clicking, focus all the time, I can just pin them. So let's say I'm going to pin Galaxy S10 as a tab, and I'm going to pin iPad Pro as a tab. So now I can easily switch. So I can click on this and quickly jump into focus mode for these devices. And I can jump out of focus mode either by clicking exit focus, or I can just press F. I have to be clicked on the side, not in the device. So I can just click anywhere on the side and press F, which is going to take me out of focus mode. But now I have these tabs that I can easily jump into any device. So that was the focus mode, and focus mode will also allow you to rotate with the keyboard shortcuts between different devices. So let me pin one more device. I'm going to pin this one as a tab. And now when I jump into focus mode, I can just use the arrow keys on my keyboard in order to quickly jump between devices. So you can see I'm pressing left and right arrow keys, and this is switching between devices. And so I can easily just click here, or I can use the arrows to rotate between devices. I'm going to press F, which is going to take us out of focus mode. And if I don't want to see this toolbar all the time, just like in browsers, in other browsers, you can press Ctrl-Shift-B or Command-Shift-B on macOS in order to toggle this bar if you don't want to see it all the time. So I think we managed to cover all the modes. We covered responsive mode, full mode, resizable mode, and we showed focus mode. Let me just look at the menu of the device and pick which things I'm going to show you in this video and which things I'm going to show you in the next video. Maybe we can peek more into the device menu next time or later in this video. Now what I want to show you, while we're in responsive mode, we have access to this device drawer, so I can easily choose which devices I want to see here. So I'm going to click in the device drawer, and it's gonna the entire workspace is going to go into this device organization mode. And on the left, I'm going to get a drawer with all the devices that exist in Sizzy. Here I'm going to get a list of all the visible devices, and here I'm going to get a preview of my workspace. So here I can just easily reorder these devices. It doesn't make sense, we didn't add reordering here because it's going to be much more complex, especially in different modes. They have different layout and so on and so forth. So that's why we don't allow you to edit this, but you can just drag the devices here if you want to reorder them. And it's also easier, because if this list is very long, it's going to be easier to do it in a list than to do it in the devices here. So I can reorder these devices. I can hide some of the devices. I can pin some of them as tabs or unpin them from tabs. So you can see here it shows, I'm going to press Command-Shift-B to see the list. So I can either unpin them from here, or I can just click here in order to unpin these devices from the tabs. And I can drag new devices. So I'm going to drag iPhone 11, I'm going to drag iPhone 8 Plus, Pixel 3 XL, and you can see I drag them into the workspace, and I also see them here. So now I can just reorder them the way that I want, and now I can turn off the device drawer. So I can close it by clicking here, or by just clicking on collapse devices drawer. And now I'm going to be back to this mode, and my website is going to load in all of these devices at once. If I want to organize again, I can click here, or if I want to quickly hide a device, I can just click on more, and I can click on hide, and I can hide devices here. You can see that I cannot edit devices because these are predefined devices that we added to Sizzy. So if I want to edit devices, there are a couple of ways I can do that. So I'm going to go in device drawer, and I'm going to show you one more thing that we can do here. We can add a device. So I can click on the plus button here, which says create a device. And now I can just give, I'm going to call this Square Phone, and I'm going to pick a user agent. So I'm going to pick iPad, and then you can pick the input type, the type, whether it's a phone, tablet, desktop, laptop, the OS, and the browser UI, whether you want any browser UI. And then you can say if it supports rotation or not. You can choose the dimensions. So I'm going to choose 300 by 300 because we're making a Square Phone, and the pixel ratio. So I'm going to save this, and now this is going to be on the bottom of my list. So I have, as you can see, I have Square Phone here, which is the custom devices that I created. You can create as many custom devices as you want. And now I can drag this Square Phone here. I can turn off the drawer. And as you can see, I have Square Phone. It doesn't have a frame. You cannot add custom frames. It doesn't have any browser UI because I chose that. But I can always click here, click on more, click on edit. As you can see now, I have edit and delete, which I don't have for the other devices because you cannot delete the default devices. You can only hide them. So for a default device, I can hide it, but for this Square Phone, I can delete it or I can edit it. So first, let me edit the device. I can change the name. I can add some browser UI, which is going to look very weird, but let's try it. I'm going to choose iOS new. So this is going to make a really, like it added the iOS UI, but now I don't have a lot of space to work with here. So you can edit these devices or you can delete them. So let's delete the Square Phone, and it's gone. These devices, these built-in devices, you cannot delete them, but however you can hide them. And as our device list is growing, you can see we added a lot of devices, and we're planning to add much more. You might be annoyed and you might not want to see all of these devices. So what we allow you to do is you can click on settings here for managing devices. And now here it explains that these are the default Sizzy devices, and you can disable some of them if you're not planning to use them at all, meaning you're going to disable them completely from everywhere. So let's say that I'm an iPhone hater. I don't want to see these iPhones, and I'm going to disable all of these iPhones, and I'm going to click save, which is going to make them disappear from my workspace, and they're also going to disappear from the drawer, and I'm not going to be able to use those devices because I completely disable them from managed devices. And here the only thing that I can do is I can just enable and disable custom devices. But what if I want to take a device and then modify it further and make it my own? I don't have much reason to do that, but we allow you to do that. So if you want to have multiple iPhone 11s for some reason, you can just, let me just enable this, and I can click on clone. And it says device clone. You can find it in the custom devices tab. So now if I click in the custom devices tab, here I'm going to see all the clones, and I can also create custom devices from here. So just like we did Square Phone, I'm going to create it from here, and I'm going to save it from here. I'm going to go with something bigger now, 500 by 500, and you can see I have my Square Phone and I have my iPhone 11 clone. So now I can take my iPhone 11 clone and I can customize everything on the iPhone 11 clone. I can click save. I can go and drag my iPhone 11, and I can find the clone, iPhone 11 clone here, close the drawer, and you can see now I have iPhone 11 and I have iPhone 11 clone. The difference is here I can only clone and hide it, but for the cloned one I can also edit it, I can delete it if I want to. So that's the difference between custom and clone devices and between default Sizzy devices. So I'm just gonna delete this clone because we don't need it. I just wanted to show you the functionality. And the Square Phone that we created is now here. So if I want to delete it, I can easily do that either from the device menu, or I can go, let's do it another way. So we're going to go settings, we're going to go manage devices, we're going to go custom devices. And now here I have the Square Phone here. I can easily delete the Square Phone from here. If I change my mind, I can click cancel. The device is going to stay. If I save, the device is gone. So that's everything. I think that I covered everything regarding device management in Sizzy, and that should be more enough for you to get started with the device management. Two more things that we have regarding the workspace and the device management, and I think I'm going to wrap up for tutorial number 1. So there are some icons that I have disabled here just not to bloat my toolbar, and that I don't use them that often. So I'm going to go in settings, I'm going to go in toolbar, and in buttons I'm going to enable filters. Actually, it's just one button. I don't use filters a lot. So if I have a bunch of devices, let me just pull Galaxy, and let me pull Pixel 2 and Note and iPad Pro and whatever I have here. I'm going to drag a bunch of devices. So you can see that the workspace will get a little bit cluttered when I see all of these devices. And if I just quickly see, hey, let me just look at the Android devices, or hey, let me look at the iOS devices, I have the filters pop up here, so I can easily see the iOS devices, I can easily see the Android devices, I can easily choose only the tablets, or the tablets and the phones. So you can play with the filters here, but this is not the best way to manage devices in Sizzy. You don't want to have all devices and then just focus on phone devices. The option is still there. We had this since version 0.0001. The option is still there for filters, but honestly I don't use them that much. So I'm going to hide the filters icon from here, and I'm going to talk briefly about presets, and we're going to wrap up the video after that. So what I do personally is I have a couple of presets of devices that I can easily switch between. So I can click in my presets, and you can see here that I have iPhones, which is going to switch the workspace. Well, I disabled all the iPhones, so let me just enable everything here so I can show you things properly. So yeah, when I click iPhones, I get these 3 iPhones. When I click on Samsung, I'm gonna get Samsung devices in center mode. So you can save a bunch of things in presets, and you can see as I switch between presets, this is iPhones in grid mode, this is Samsung's in center mode. Then I have mix, whatever that does. It's 3 devices in float mode. Then I have minimal, whatever that does, iPhone 8 and Pixel 3. And then I have recording for recording video. I guess I'm using this preset of devices. And then I have my devices, whatever that is. It's just some funky layout. I think this is float. Yeah, this is float. So as you can see, presets allow you to save basically a lot of things in Sizzy, and then you can quickly access them by just switching between the presets. So let's create a new preset. I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna keep this mode. I'm gonna keep being in float mode. I'm gonna add a bunch of devices just so we make something really weird. So we're gonna make something like this. I'm gonna position all of these devices here, and I'm gonna yeah, okay, this is perfect. Let's not sweat it. Let's not spend way too much time on this. We're gonna keep this float mode, and let's say that this is perfect for our monitor. I want to be able to easily switch to this preset. So I can click on presets and I can click on save preset. And now I can call this funky layout. Let's just call it funky layout. And now Sizzy asks me, what do I want to save exactly? Do I want to say the device theming, which is the device config? We need to rename that. So this means, do I want to save the device header, the device shadow, or anything that we configured in this pop-up? Should we save that? Then it asks me if I want to save the zoom level, which is 92. Do I want to also save that in the preset? Do I want to save the alignment, the network settings, the color scheme, the locale, and the list of devices? Of course, we want to save the list of devices. That's the biggest reason why we're saving this preset. And I'm going to say that I want to save everything in this funky layout. I'm going to click save. Now I can mess up my devices. I can move around. I can jump into another mode, whatever. But I can easily, at any point, I can click presets, I can click funky layout, and the devices are going to go back to that layout. And also because I also saved the device config. From here, it can be disabled. Like I'm gonna make them look weird. And if I jump into my preset now, everything is gonna come back. So if I click on funky layout, you can see the frames came back and everything came back. So I can have one preset. Let's do another preset. So I'm gonna jump into grid mode, and I'm gonna call this one minimalistic. So I'm gonna say no frame, no browser, no as, correct the screen dimensions, space between devices should be really small, and I'm gonna zoom the devices like this so I can see multiple viewports at once. And maybe I'm gonna put this ones in. Okay, I don't have the alignment, so it's fine. So I'm gonna keep them like this, and I'm gonna call this preset minimalistic. So I'm gonna call this minimalistic. I'm gonna save this, and now I can easily change a lot of things. So clicking on funky layout jumps us into float mode with a bunch of different device settings, and the devices look like this. And clicking on minimalistic jumps back into grid mode, and the devices look like this. So easily you can make your own groups of devices. So how I work personally, I usually work in full mode, like in a default normal browser mode. So I will just work in full mode for a while, and after I want to work on responsive mode and to check if everything works on all devices, I'm going to quickly switch between let's say funky layout. I'm going to check if everything works fine. I'm going to look at my page and be like, okay, this works perfectly fine, and then I can jump back to full mode. Or sometimes I'm stuck in this mode for a while. If I'm trying a bunch of things on different screen sizes and so on and so forth, I'm in this mode, but mostly I'm coding in full mode. And when I need to, I just switch to my favorite preset, and that's gonna take me to see the devices that I want to see in that preset, and then I can easily switch between different presets. You can also pin the presets. So as we said, we can pin devices, right? I can also pin presets. So in presets, I can pin the ones that I use the most, like funky layout and minimalistic. So now I can easily switch in this tabbed bar. I can switch between iPhone 8, iPhone 11, minimalistic, funky layout. So I can just use this to quickly switch between one device or multiple devices and different presets. Of course, we can unpin presets, we can unpin devices. And I think I showed you everything that you need to know regarding presets. You can also update presets, which at this point is very confusing. So I would totally suggest you to just delete a preset that you have and just create a new one. We covered a lot of things. I have no idea how long is this video. Oh, it's 28 minutes. And I think that's perfect for the first tutorial regarding view modes, align modes, managing devices, and everything that you can do using presets, tabs, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of things to cover, like a lot of things to cover. So I'm gonna record as many tutorials as they're needed. I'm gonna put all of them in a playlist so you can easily follow them if you're a new Sizzy user, or if you were using Sizzy but you didn't know about everything that Sizzy can do. And thank you very much for watching this. If you made it until the end of a 30-minute video, you're a champion. Thank you very much, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Bye bye.